Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel. And Happy New Year, everybody. What a first day of the year. What a way to start off 2026. Chelsea, or I should rather say Enzo Maresca, has departed Chelsea Football Club, and we are now on the lookout for a new manager. I'm already joined by Naishi. Naishi, I'll get to you in just a second. Mo should be joining us very soon as well. Naishi even tuning in from his holiday in Morocco. So big up yourself, Naishi. I'll get to you in a second. Oh my days, what is the situation? What is life? I am genuinely done. I am genuinely done with the situation. Oh, Naishi's gone. Well, Ariko, sorry. I'm sure he'll be back. I'm sure he'll be back. But yeah, we have parted ways with our manager. This is genuinely a crazy situation. I can't believe Naishi has already turned up with so many fans. Big up Naishi. I hope he joins again. I hope he does. And I hope there he is. There he is. Naishi, you made it back. You've already got all the fans in the chat. So I'll get your reaction straight away, mate. There's so much to elaborate on. I don't even know how I feel, but obviously we started to know it was going to be a thing last night. We really knew. But my God, it's still crazy, isn't it?
No, most definitely. It's a shock, to be honest. But I've seen it coming since from the time he came out with it's the worst 24 hours or 48 hours at the club, and from there it was just downhill really. Because at the same time, I get it. He's trying to be transparent with the fans, but really and truly, if you're gonna say statements like that, there's no going back really. And Jamie Carragher said it on Sky Sports News. And to be fair, I don't like Jamie Carragher at all, but the points he made following that kind of coming out and saying all that stuff, it was just gonna go downhill. I didn't expect it to be this soon. I expected it to be done in the summer, but the performance.
Oh, unfortunately, Naishi froze up.
Him getting
Like I say,
sacked,
he's on
really.
holiday in Morocco, so we can't be too mad at him. Is your connection back, bro?
Yeah, should be back now. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah. I can hear you now. Go on.
Sorry, yeah, apologies. Yeah, it's just the connection. Yeah. So yeah. What I was just saying. In summary, really, is mainly because he came out with what he said, and the performances are not great, and it was just gonna be lead to one thing and one thing only. And obviously, I'm kind of in a way happy that this is happening, because now this exposes the board as well as the sporting directors.
Yeah, I mean, this is partly why I asked you to come on the stream, because I know you've been, let's say, less supportive of the manager in detail maybe than I have, which is why I think it's important and interesting to like bring maybe two slightly different perspectives, I suppose. Just to quickly read through it, and trust me, it is very quick. The official club statement by Chelsea Football Club, released on their website, Twitter, everything. A club statement, Enzo Maresca. Chelsea Football Club and head coach Enzo Maresca have parted company. During his time at Chelsea, Enzo led the team to success in the UEFA Conference League and the FIFA Club World Cup. Those achievements will remain an important part of the club's recent history, and we thank him for his contributions to the club. With key objectives still to play for across 4 competitions, including qualification for Champions League football, Enzo and the club believe a change gives the team the best chance of getting the season back on track. We wish Enzo well for the future. And that's it. That's all they've said. That is literally all they've said. And you kind of hinted at a few things already there, Naishi. There's so much to this. Like, you see reactions like this from Ryan, we're finished as top club. Part of me feels like that. Well, we'll get into our feelings in a minute. We'll get into it. Obviously, that's what Joe said as well. If Maresca is telling Chelsea he's talking to City on 2 occasions, shouldn't he leave regardless? We will get into those reports and stories as well, because it's always the same thing, isn't it? When a manager leaves, when certain players leave, all of a sudden all the club briefs come out, making the manager or the player look bad and trying to make the club look good. How much of that can you believe? Some of it maybe, some of it definitely not. And it's just, we're just in a situation where you're like, how on earth did he get this far? Think about it, Naishi. A month ago, or not even a month ago, a month ago, Maresca won manager of the month in November. In November, we beat Barcelona 3-0. We got a good 1-1 draw against Arsenal, being down to 10 men for 60 minutes of that game. We were, after that game, people handled us as title contenders. And now we're like just over a month after that, 6 weeks after that. The manager has left. We're in absolute disarray. I'm not even sure what position we are in the table. I haven't even looked. That's how depressing things are. But the form has obviously fallen off a cliff a little bit. And we're now in a situation where you're just thinking to yourself, what on earth do we do now? what on earth do we do from here? Because I know there were some people, and this partly maybe even included you as well, Nishi, that to an extent wanted the manager gone. And I'm just like, I just don't trust him to get anyone reasonably even half acceptable as a replacement, I suppose. And that's why I'm not particularly buzzing about the situation, if I'm being honest. But I mean, that was not meant to happen. Take away from me, bro, the sentiment of what this does to the club, just from a manager's perspective. You're not that unhappy about him leaving. The problem is, and I understand this, it's difficult to always judge what really is the situation. A lot of the things that the people that are angry at Maresca for are angry at him about is partly what seems to be not all his decisions. There's obviously chat today that the higher-ups have influenced his lineup. His lineups have kind of, what's the right word, encouraged him to play certain players when he maybe didn't want to do that, and just not really letting him do what he wants to do. And that seems to be the main reason why we've got here. That seems to be the main reason over the fallout between Maresca and Behdad Eghbali. Not that one singular detail, but just as a whole, that he wants to be left to work, but he's not really getting that opportunity. So how does that, in his opinion at least, so how does that make you feel, Nation, when you're like, yeah, I had these criticisms, but now I can't even really be sure were those really even his decisions or were they not? It's really difficult to judge that.
Yeah, no, I agree. The thing is with Maresca, like only recently, because I rate him as a manager. Tactically, I think he's up there against the big teams. Tactically, he always had an answer for the big teams. The only issue I had is it's just weird, like player selection. I would say the starting lineups were really annoying me. I would even say the past 2 months, really. Even not using Josh Achimpong at certain games, and then resting players when they shouldn't really rest. I get it. Some players, he's managing the minutes and so on. But there's points where he could have put in players or left players on, or even Esteval, he could have started him in certain games. He was not starting him in certain games. It was just really confusing. And I feel like he had something else in mind, like another job lined up, like the Man City job. I do think that has distracted him, and in a way, I was just really getting frustrated because our squad is better than where it should be right now. Aside from,
This is the
I would
part
say
I
so.
just disagree with. I just don't think it is.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I just
I
don't think
think
it is. Go on.
I think we're top four. I don't think we're winning the league. I don't think, but it shouldn't be
Yeah, but
15
that's where
points.
we are, though. You know?
Yeah, but I do
Whether you're
think.
fourth or fifth at this point, it doesn't really matter, does it?
No, I get that, but we were 3 points away from Arsenal.
Yeah.
What was it, in November? 3 points, and now we're 15 points. That is a drastic drop, to be honest. That drop is not acceptable, like by any manager. I think we've won one game in seven games. That is relegation kind of form.
Yeah. I mean,
To
there's obviously the fact to it that we also only lost 2 out of those 7. It's not like we lost all of them. And saying we only won 1 of 7 obviously sounds a lot more dramatic and a lot worse than saying we only lost 2 in the last 7. There's 2 ways of spinning it. I hear you though. Like it's my frustration. It just goes so deep. Where I'm like, I hear your points. Like it's not like I don't hear them. The whole Man City talk, and we'll bring that up in a minute as well. Did it distract him? Did it not? I just can't believe a word of what these guys talk about anymore. Like when you think about everything that has come out of the club over the last few years, you have Behdad Eghbali saying things like the club wasn't terribly well run on and off the pitch in the old ownership. And then you see them failing one transfer window after the other. You see them still not having a front of shirt sponsor after 4 seasons. You see them just essentially ruin everything that there is to ruin. No movement towards a new stadium, literally just absolute just standstill in everything that really matters from the club's perspective. And then you have Graham Potter. Okay, it doesn't fail. You sack him. You bring Frank Lampard back for 6 weeks. Essentially no reason, right? You just had 6 weeks of just shit, right? For nothing. You bring in Poch, a Tottenham legend. Brilliant. Great appointment. And then you clearly only bring him in as a stopgap option in the first place because you only give him a 2-year deal. After 1 year already, you part ways. Fair enough. It happens. Company like Poch already fell out with these people either because he wanted more experience. He didn't want Gallagher to be sold. The club wanted to sell Gallagher. There was a lot more to it. And then they change. Then they go for, okay, we don't go for a relatively proven manager like a Poch. Even Graham Potter, of course, not proven, but, did some good things at Brighton before we hired him. And now they go for a championship manager. Okay, the guy that won the championship, mind you, not just, finished mid-table. And he's obviously a very young manager, Pep disciples dominate football from a manager's perspective all over the world, whether it's Company, whether it's Luis Enrique who learned from him, whether it's Xabi Alonso who learned from Pep Guardiola, whether it's obviously Arteta, all of them really. And then they give that guy a 5-year contract. And now, essentially, the problems started after, 16 months? If that, 13 months, 14 months maybe? And they started, less than a month after we won the Club World Cup? And you're like, even if he does things wrong, even if you're like, oh, yeah, but if he's talking to Man City, you need to get rid of him anyway. But why is he talking to Man City? Why is he talking to Man City after the summer we've had? You know what I mean? Like, he came out and made it so abundantly clear. It's like, I need a new centre-back. He literally used those phrases. It's very crucial for me that we get a new centre-back. Let's see whether we go for it or not. And they didn't. And now you're seeing media briefs. Maresca was involved in every transfer decision. Yeah, he was told about it. Clearly, it wasn't his say that counted. You know what I mean? But for me, it's just like, we'll obviously talk about this and we'll get to that. Who will be the potential, successors and stuff like this. But I'm at a point where I'm like, I just don't believe them, and I had my issues with not believing them anyway. But I'm like, okay, I gave you a chance for a while. And now I feel like, well, I've given you a chance. Remember a few years ago when they said with a 4 transfer window plan, that plan never looked any good. And I'm like, okay, so your guy is now left. It's the 4th manager really in a row where it's failed on a personal level rather than a sporting level more than anything else. Well, okay, with Potter, of course, it was a sporting level, but we knew that there was issues in the background as well. And you're like, who's going to choose us still? We're not going to go for anybody better. And on top of the 4 managers that we've fallen out with while they were in charge, we had Luis Enrique, who we said no to because he wasn't accepting not giving up the power, and Nagelsmann, who said no to us because he wasn't accepting giving up the power. And then you're like, where does that leave us? And it honestly puts me in a situation where I'm like, I don't think until we just change the strategy, we will ever make it to the top again. And until that point, it just feels like the people that hire these managers that keep, according to them, failing, they are not facing any accountability. And if that is the case, there is no hope. And that makes me feel like, you can't just stop supporting your club, but you can stop supporting an institution. And I can become a fan from afar. Like, I'm not really sure if I want to deal with this much longer, if I'm honest, because they do everything that the club isn't supposed to do, I feel like. Do you feel that as well? Like the signings we make, the managerial decisions they make, first they hire an inexperienced manager and then they sack him for not being perfect. Well, then don't hire an inexperienced manager in the first place. You know what I mean? Of course, an inexperienced manager isn't going to be perfect. Just like if you sign a 19-year-old, he isn't going to be perfect, compared to a 27-year-old. So it just feels like, I don't know, man. I'll bring up the Ornstein tweets in a second, but do you see where I'm coming from with that? Like, whether I think Maresca is the guy or not, it's more like a principle thing for me, where I'm like, it's the 4th manager in a row you can't get on with. How many are there? You know what I mean? They're not getting better, are they? Like, do I really want Andoni Iraola, like a 3-back merchant? Glasner has already been ruled out. The next 3-back merchant. Even Rosenior plays back 3. We have 1 wing back in the squad. How is that going to work? What are we going to do? I have no hope, though. Please. Do you have any more hope than I do?
No, honestly, yeah, it's a mess. We can't even get a front shirt sponsor, and you know what I mean. We haven't had the front shirt sponsor in about 2 years, which is crazy to me. So I think
you can even say
I think the board are not.
The one we had was our own company, wasn't it? With like Infinite Athletics, that wasn't even a real thing.
Yeah, it's a mess right now. To be honest, the biggest example I could say is I feel like an Arsenal fan right now. Like this past 4 or 5 years, it's been just literally just getting top four outside of the top fours. It's just this is not how I'm used to supporting Chelsea. This is a new experience for me these past 4 years, and it's really been testing, and it really kind of shows how well run the club was under Abramovich. And although he was a bit, he done some shady things behind closed doors, at least he knew what it was to be to be Chelsea, and he knew how to run the club and how to kind of increase expectations. And right now we're just in we're borderline just accepting top four. We're just accepting cup runs because we haven't won a league in almost 9 years. It's been 9 years actually. It was 2017. So yeah, it's 9 years. So that is a long time, like without winning a league. And I thought with Maresca, I thought he would get to that point, but obviously not. It's just, and to be honest, just to touch back on Maresca, his December period has been awful for the past 2 years. So that was another red flag.
Very true.
I know he's gone now, but that was another big red flag for me. And you
I
just
will
can't keep
counter that though with, other than the seasons we've won the league in, hasn't our December been bad every year, no matter who the manager or the owners were?
Oh, that's a fair point. To be honest, yeah, it seems like a Chelsea thing,
Yeah, it's
even
just a thing
under
with us, unfortunately. We're a bit shit in
yeah,
December when it gets cold.
which is probably the most crucial part of the season. December,
Yeah.
that's probably when you get the most fixtures, and we always mess up around December, and it's a bad habit really. And like I said, we're gonna have to stick with this ownership. Like they've invested what 2.5 billion to take over this institution. So I do, because I am appreciative of how they taken over the club when we were really down and we had no real offers. They came in and kind of saved us. So they have credit in the bank in that sense of things. Because really and truly, for someone to just
Is that
cough
how
up
you view it?
22.5. Yeah, I do. Literally, we didn't have fans going to the stadiums. We, I don't. The government puts a number of sanctions against us. I thought we were going to get relegated to League Two. There's a point where I thought, what's going to happen with Chelsea Football Club? But at least,
My point is, they weren't exactly the only interested party in buying the club. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like if they weren't there, nobody else would have been. I'm not saying the other ones would have been better. No one will ever know. But really, when you think back to it now, they were gaslighting us from the first second. Think about it. The head of
yeah,
the whole campaign was Todd Bowley. He doesn't even
yeah,
have anything to do with it now. He has no say about what's going on. It's all Behdad Eghbali that does everything, but the guy that they've, fronted the whole campaign with was a completely different guy. Isn't that in and of itself untrustworthy? You know what I mean? Like if the guy that you said, this is the guy buying the club, and now he doesn't even have a choice or a say, that in itself is bad, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like I get where you're coming from with that. But honestly, some of the last few years have been so bad where I'm like, maybe it would have been better if we just got liquidated. Do you know what I mean? We would have left on a high, just won the Champions League. Now we have to endure this shit show on a weekly basis. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I hear you though. Let me quickly bring up. Oh no, that was the wrong thing. Let me quickly bring up the Ornstein tweet. We'll get to Fabrizio's tweet as well, just so we can cover the news, and then we can kind of get back into our personal opinions on those things. Well, it wasn't Ornstein that first broke the news. We kind of started hearing it from last night that it will, literally as it hit midnight in Austria, as I'm obviously an hour, further forward than England is. Literally, Pys tweeted, "Yeah, they're discussing a severance," or texted in our group chat, "They're discussing a severance package right now." I'm like, fuck's sake, mate. It literally it just turned into the new year. What is this? But anyway, Ornstein said, breaking: Chelsea and Enzo Maresca part company. Head coach leaves with immediate effect. Position deemed untenable. Chelsea expect to name replacement from small number of candidates in next few days. Rosenior contender, Glasner not in frame. And then there's more, and this is where it gets a little bit spicy, and this is where you start to be unsure about the situation. Exclusive from David Ornstein. Enzo Maresca informed Chelsea twice late in October and again mid-December after the post-Everton comments. He was talking to people associated with Man City about Manchester City manager position if/when vacancy arises. Chelsea contract obliged Maresca to essentially inform them when he's talking to anybody else. And this is kind of where I go back to what I said earlier, where I'm like, in my experience, when it was Thomas Tuchel, they media briefed bad things about Tuchel, why it was also his fault, why he's leaving. The same happened under Potter. Okay, with Potter, the results were so bad, I think they didn't need to do that. Even with Poch, they were in hindsight throwing bad things out about him. And I'm like, why? And then you also go back to certain sales the club has made, whether it was Mason Mount, whether it was Conor Gallagher. Every single time after the club has after the player had left, all of a sudden the club briefs are coming out why it's actually the player's fault and why the club made contract offers anyway, and how it's actually all on the club, all on the players. And it just makes you feel, stop lying to me. Like, I am not a thick idiot. Stop lying to me and pretending like everything's fine, like pretending like you've got everything under control. You've got nothing under control. Absolutely nothing. I mean, I can even go back through Fabrizio's tweets from last night. Obviously, this was when it became official, essentially. Breaking: Chelsea and Enzo Maresca agreed to part company with immediate effect. It's over. Official statement to follow, but all done after tension growing in the last 24 to 48 hours. Chelsea will now start working on new manager appointment. And the follow-up on that was interesting. Chelsea will appoint a new manager very soon. Not going to take weeks or a long time. The club is now working on it. Liam Rosenior, highly rated internally, after excellent job at Strasbourg, as he's among contenders. Decision to be made in days and won't take long. Excuse me, I'm still slightly ill. Before we get into the successor talk, Neshi, like I say, I'm just scrolling back to what happened earlier, right? And Chelsea and Maresca ready to part ways. That was before that. The relationship is deteriorated, and next formal steps are expected to follow soon. That is out of chat. Chelsea and Enzo Maresca situation getting tense in the last 24 hours, as reported, with club and manager considering future. It's not about next game or January results. It was never the case. It's an immediate situation between Maresca and Chelsea now being discussed. And we also heard things like, how he was supposedly ill after the game against Bournemouth, why he didn't do the post-match media, according to Willy Caballero. Turns out he wasn't ill. Turns out he just was considering his options. And that in and of itself is kind of crazy when you really think about it. And then you also have this. Again, I feel like I don't have an issue with Ben Jacobs, but obviously he's very closely tied to the club. So you're like, how much can I take your word for this? But he says, more on Enzo Maresca's Chelsea departure. Club and Jorge Mendes were working on exit package from last night. Chelsea board unanimous a change was needed. Understand one of the main issues was between Maresca and Chelsea's medical department. Chelsea insisted that decisions over player workload and welfare must be autonomous from the manager. From Maresca's perspective, he felt a lack of protection and interference, leading to critical issues with the ownership. As revealed, Maresca wasn't sick after Bournemouth. He didn't want to speak as he assessed his future. Also understand Manchester City and Maresca have also held some talks already. This came as a surprise to many within Chelsea hierarchy, with some feeling the Italian was distracted. This is weird to me as well. So how can it come as a surprise when, according to Ornstein, he already told them in October? You know what I mean? Here we are already with the first things that kind of contradict themselves. Chelsea leadership also concerned by 20 drop points from leading positions in the Premier League and Champions League, leading to fears of a lack of mental fortitude. Chelsea have no plans to change their model, less than a handful of names in contention to replace Maresca, including Liam Rosenior. Now, there was a lot we read through. There, but Neshi, even just that point, here they are surprised. On the other, they knew in October. This is where my questions of this is just media briefs. You know what I mean? Oh, interesting. Adash, big up Adash. But Adash, do you want to join? Are you free? Let me know in the chat. I'll drop you a link. Not in contention according to L'Equipe. Now, obviously, L'Equipe French outlet. Rosenior works in France, but Ben Jacobs is literally the club brief. The club outlet. So if they tell him Rosenior is an option, I feel like he's probably an option. You know what I mean? But yeah, there's a lot happening here, isn't there? Like, he wanted to, just this sentence alone, issue, right? Understand one of the main issues was between Maresca and Chelsea's medical department. Chelsea insisted that decisions over player workload and welfare must be autonomous from the manager. This is, for me, a difficult thing, and I'll tell you why. Because you've seen what I've said in our chats, Neshi. I've actually been quite kind of supportive of the whole rotation thing, because I'm like, after not having a preseason, I would much rather make sure our players don't overdo it. We have, by doing this, made Reece James play over 50 games this year. And I'm like, so clearly you can't say it's not working. But now we're hearing, really, that was Maresca doing that. He wanted to play players much more, but the Chelsea see this should be a medical staff decision only. I don't know what to make of this, because on the one hand, I think the reason we are doing this is because of Poch. because Poch probably had this power, and Poch ruined our entire squad with permanent injuries. So now they probably didn't want to give the next manager this power, but surely it has to be different whether it's a stopgap manager or whether it's the manager you fully believe in. Surely that has to be a different kind of balance, a different kind of dynamic in my head. But this is what I meant earlier in terms of when you were talking about the lineups and stuff, but then you read this and you're like, did he even choose the lineups, right? Like, I don't know. We really don't know now. So it's just crazy. Like, why can we never just have a normal day? Really, New Year's Day is, by the way, supposedly the first ever manager that leaves their club on New Year's Day. Why? Why is that happening to us, man? Speak to me, bro.
Honestly, the timing is crazy to me. Like you just said, New Year's Day, I was just celebrating New Year's, and I'm hearing, "Oh, manager's gone." It's just the timing is ridiculous. On the medical thing, the announcement on the medical staff, I get it. If it's a player like, for example, Fofana, who's had recent injuries, who else? Lavia, who's had recurring injuries, Reece James, those players I can understand, and I don't think I've kind of
Fofana,
really
for
complained.
example.
Yeah, I haven't really complained when those players have come out, really, because I understand that they have to be managed. But Esteval, if we touch back on Esteval, we know for a fact he doesn't have any injury problems. So
No, he did,
the
though. He did. He missed 2 games with injury, remember, just before
oh,
Christmas. But it was
okay.
obviously a small niggle. It was nothing big and stuff.
Then, but including myself, there was a lot of disgruntled fans
Yep.
before that injury that were complaining about him not starting. And I think Maresca should have just, I know he was just protecting him because he's a young player, but really and truly, he should have just kept riding the wave, right? Because the fans love the player, just kept riding the momentum, really. And if he has a bad performance, take him out. But just play him. And also Josh Acheampong, he's regarded highly amongst Chelsea fans as well as the club. He wasn't using him in the right way either. I'm not saying Maresca was all at fault, but I do think the medical department thing wasn't so much of a hindrance on his team selection, apart from those players that I mentioned,
I think,
Fana.
for example, with Parma in the last few days, very much so. And to be fair, there was a lot of people unhappy with Parma's substitutions recently, and I think that is a prime example for that. And I mean,
Yeah,
if it's
yeah, I agree.
workload, an 18-year-old coming from Brazil, I don't know this. Many things I have heard things in the background on Esteval's specific issue. I have not, so I can't tell you whether they're like, yeah, but he's 18 coming from Brazil, don't overplay him, or whether this was Maresca, like you're saying, Nashi. I truly don't know. I will get to a few of your messages in the chat as well, guys, and no problem, of course, I'll enjoy your holiday. Fantasy PGA Joe, thanks for your messages. Says half the reason is they want regular game time for players. They want to sell to raise their value, in my opinion. The workload thing is a veil for that. I see that. I absolutely see that, and that makes sense. Supposedly one of the players that was part of the crux of these differences was, for example, Jovel Hatter, who they wanted to see play instead of Cucurella much more often. But then you also see the fans, as soon as he rotated someone like Cucurella, for example, against Leeds, and we played Jovel Hatter. Well, actually, I'm not sure if Jovel Hatter even played that game, if I'm honest. But every time we kind of rotated a lot, the fans were fucking fuming every time. And what we hear is that the club wanted him to rotate even more. Maybe not in every specific case, maybe not with Esteval, for example. We don't know it for that. But we know it for Cucurella and Hatter. And you're like, of course they want Hatter to play because he's going to deteriorate in value otherwise. And frankly, it's all their fault. And this is my point. Like, the fact that we have so many players that need game time to increase value, it's their fault. The fact that we've spent so much money on players who have already not increased in value, like how many can you name? Casadei, David Washington, okay, Broja was our own player, but we had so many players that we dealt with badly. It just puts you in a position where you're like, what on earth is even the point? That's what I feel. And yeah, I'll get to a couple more. I've never been as unexcited for a new manager appointment. Honestly, I kind of feel the same. It was I see your rage baiting. I appreciate it, but I'm not going to talk about it too much. At this point, don't give managers 2-3 year contracts. They're never going to get a coach who would stay that long under this regime, save the sacking money. Yeah, but the problem is, bro, managers don't sign contracts that are less than that because they want security for themselves in terms of if they get sacked, they want a payout. So you're not get like Tuchel. Remember when we hired Tuchel back then under Roman, and we only gave him an 18-month contract, and he was already back then. Yeah, he did consider it because it's very unusual. He doesn't usually want to take contracts like that, but he was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. So Poch, they only gave 2 years. Maresca, they gave 5. You know what I mean? 2 years is okay, but 5, and then you're gonna get rid of them straight away it's just pathetic. JC also says, not a big fan of Maresca, but will never understand the mindset and thoughts of Eghbali and the sporting directors. Exactly. You're at church right now too. What the fuck is this start of the year? My God, yeah. It's not pretty then, is it? It's not pretty. I think if he was talking to City, then that kind of justifies it. But what the problem is that it was still Maresca that kind of made this happen now. You know, Naishi touched on it earlier. It all really started with those comments after the Everton defeat, when he was saying this was the worst 48 hours at the club. I didn't get the backing from inside the club. And honestly, I kind of see, someone said this earlier, I feel like if he, by that point, had already been talking to City and the club knew that, I understand them not backing him publicly a crazy amount. You got to say that's fair enough. But at the same time, it doesn't take away from the reasons why we got into this position. You know what I mean? The reasons why we got into this position is because they kept making the squad worse, and this is the thing that frustrates me so much, and this is why I'm losing hope. I mean, how does that feel like for you, Naishi? Because we also had this comment here. Where was it again? I've never been so unexcited for a new manager appointment. Do you feel that? Do you feel like the kind of the passion, the emotion, the care dwindling because you're feeling the hope dwindling, or is that kind of still burning within you?
Yeah, the thing is, I do believe this is kind of like a trial and error period, and these past couple of years, but now fans are getting really impatient, and it's a point where they have to do right decisions right now. I think they've run out of excuses, and it's at a point where one, it's they know they have to get it right this time. They should have got it right with the Maresca appointment, but now it's going to be falling right on their heads. And they're under, the sporting directors are probably under serious pressure, which is good in a way. And like I said, because I think I do hope that they will adjust the kind of strategy, really. I think they'll realize, you know what, buying potential players is not working out at all. And maybe
When
a
do you think
4-year.
they will realize that? Now? Or?
I think like at the end of the season, really, if a new manager comes in and the results continue to be like inconsistent, I think they will adjust it slightly, maybe target 24 to 25-year-olds or increase that wage structure. I think they will adjust it because one, I know for a fact if they carry on doing this strategy, it won't work out. But I do believe though, which is caveat to that, is if you keep the same core players like Casado, Palmer, Reece James, Chalobah, Sanchez, potentially, it will naturally get better because now, which I like, I think that you are keeping those core players like Enzo Fernandez as well. You can put that in that list. If they stick to that and keeping those core players, we will naturally get better because one, they would have had experience, they would have been in the club for a long time. I think all those players have been in the club for what, 3-4 years now. So we have some continuity there at least.
And you know, this was exactly my thought last year, even going into last summer. But then the last summer transfer window killed that for me. Even though I still get it, the kind of, you can say, a spine is still there. But this spine is dramatically lacking attacking quality. We have Cole Palmer, who is currently drastically out of form. And then all of the other hopes are literally relying on an 18-year-old Esteban. And next year, an 18-year-old Quenda coming in. And that in itself is a dangerous, dangerous game to play. You know, relying on 18-year-olds is not how you are successful in football, in my opinion. You are not successful in football this way. And And I'm just like, if you make the squad worse, and I feel they've done that every single summer since they've taken over, you're never gonna improve. You're never gonna move on. You're never gonna move up. And I spoke about this in the last stream, and I'll get to you in a second, Mo, by the way. There was this famous or kind of viral quote that was going around. It's unbelievable how committed they are to keeping us a year away from being a year away. And I think nothing defines them better, because what you're saying, Nation, you would think eventually we get to not being a year away anymore. But their transfer windows every year take us back to being a year away from being a year away and never getting closer. That's what the last 3 years have felt to me. Mo, thank you very much for joining us as well on this unforeseen New Year's Day. I have it on screen. Club statement: Enzo Maresca has departed the football club. A very limited statement, not much niceties thrown around. As we know, a fallout mainly between Enzo Maresca and Behdad Eghbali. No, I haven't had the chance to chat to you at length in a minute.
Yeah.
How on earth do you feel? Because my hopes and faith and beliefs are dwindling dramatically.
Broski, first of all, it's good to be back. Big up to you both. Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to anyone that's also listening and watching. And honestly, I want to say the circus continues, guys. We're back to the same old shenanigans where we thought, we have found a little bit of stability, especially after the Club World Cup win going into this season, feeling as positive as we did, despite the transfer window not being as positive as it should have been. I think what the statement that you said a moment ago in regards to always being a year away from a year away it's never been more true. But I think what makes it even worse for us is I don't think what Enzo was asking for was unreasonable. I think, and Enzo Maresca made it very clear what he needed from the summer window, and he needed a defender, and he needed that defender to be a fill out that can fill in the shoes of Colwell. Everything he has tried so far has shown us that it doesn't really work. And I'm like, as much as they would like to say that, we want him to attempt to use the squad that he has, at least defensively, it's not worked. Sanchez somehow has worked, and there's not really a lot of, bad stuff to say about Sanchez. But then you look at our winger situation, and I'm like, you get a coach to put in a years of work on Jadon Sancho, Madueke, Pedro Neto, and Mudryk. Obviously, we know his situation. And then all of a sudden, what happens is we rip those away and we say to him, okay, now you get Garnacho, Gittins, Esteval, which I think Esteval is, we all know how we feel about Esteval. And we say, go work with that whilst Pedro Neto is also there for you. And generally speaking, I'm like, he's not a miracle worker, guys. There's no other way to put it. What you've done is you've given him potential players to work with that you now have to get up to speed and get to be as effective as they need to be, so that the team doesn't suffer, but we can clearly see the team does suffer. And then you have to deal with the inconsistency of those players on top of that. I think many managers that you put in this situation would have said to you, F off, and I'm not doing this. But I've seen him try his very best to do what he does. I'm not going to say to anybody here that Enzo Maresca has no faults of his own. There are some in-game decisions that have not been great. In my opinion, when a manager speaks out of turn in any press conference or any scenario where he starts making snide comments at the board, it's always it's a downwards fall for anybody. And I don't think that situation helped anyone. So personally, for me, I'm not really shocked. I think the only part that I'm shocked about is we've been able to get to this point of making a decision saying before we've even gotten into the January window, we're going to make the change now. Which for us, I'll be honest, the last time we did this was under Tuchel, if I remember correctly. The other managers were all allowed to stay a little bit longer. Potter got fired after we did the whole January window stuff.
Yeah.
At least for me, the positive I'm seeing is if you appoint the right type of person right now, which for me isn't that Strasbourg manager. I think he's young and I think he's still learning his trade. What I want is somebody that can come in and go get me that top four, because we've clearly now written off the season. We're back to square one, and we need somebody that is able to actually manage the squad that we currently have if they're not willing to sign any more players. So right now for me, it's about surviving and trying to get to next summer, which is honestly devastating because that means the whole season's a write-off.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because, and I said this in my post-match stream after the Bournemouth game, I was like, I am still 100% confident that we make Champions League football. That may come with finishing fifth, but fifth will get Champions League football in the Premier League once again. So and this is kind of my reaction to also what Joe said here. As a manager, you don't always get what you want. I don't think the club was setting unrealistic targets. But the thing is, the targets weren't being missed. You know, like we are still very much in contention for everything that they are, making him, as what they've said as targets. That's kind of the thing. So, I mean, we still sit fifth. We're still literally in a Champions League spot by last season, and it will be again the Premier League getting that fifth Champions League spot. We're two points off fourth, and this top four was the expectation. So we're not exactly like far off. We're also in a cup semi-final. Okay, in the Champions League, things could have gone a little bit better, absolutely. But I think it's the way you said it there, Mo, in terms of the comparison to Tuchel is fair, and that's maybe one of the few things to cling on to. I think someone said this earlier. The last time, we were so, unhappy with the managerial change was when Lampard left, or maybe not as obviously except Tuchel, but in terms of when we were so unexcited for a new situation. Yeah. And then it obviously worked out, but I feel like it's such a different situation. We had still Roman Abramovich. First of all, we had a squad that was not just full of kids. And on top of that, we didn't have 5 bad years since, in terms of our reputation suffering under that. The other managers, other potential players, seeing how we treat managers, how we treat players, how much of a conveyor belt we are for players. And it isn't exactly like, the way you said, save ourselves, like just get to the summer. But I said this to Naishi largely before you joined. Every summer they've been in charge for, they've made our squad worse. So for me, it's not make it to the summer. For me, it's survive the summer, because I think the summer is always where we fuck things up most. Because I still think, with the way the Premier League is, I still think we fairly comfortably, no matter who the manager is. I genuinely believe that, unless you get someone really bad. I think no matter who the manager is, we'll get somewhere between 4th and 5th. And I don't think our squad is good enough to get anything higher than that. So I just think, and I don't think they would have sacked him purely on a results basis. I think only because of the fallout. But
the relationship, definitely.
Yeah, and Maresca is partly at fault for that as well. But at the same time, and I saw someone say this earlier, JC said it, here comes another inexperienced, young, easy to work with yes man coach. But the problem is they've tried that. And it didn't work every time. Like, this is what Maresca was. And it's turned out he's actually not a yes man. Because this is exactly what happened. He was not being a yes man, and therefore he's now leaving because they fell out because he was not being a yes man. But remember, when we hired him, everybody was saying he's a yes man. So there's 2 options for the next manager. Either they find a yes man who's actually a yes man, and that's bad, or he's again not a yes man, and we will sack him in another year or a year and a half. So this is
what confuses me. What confuses me, Laurenz? You've read the briefing, right? In terms of like, the formation is something that they felt like there was a lack of
I haven't
adaptability. There's a whole lot of things that have been released from the manager has been talking to Man City both in October and December about becoming a successor there for Pep. And there's also a whole other brief that I saw which basically spoke about the formation that we're playing and how we're utilizing our players and how we're utilizing some of the younger players that we want to get more minutes for. And I'm like, it's strange because we have seen this tape play over and over again already with Clear Lake. I'm like, I don't really know if I believe a lot of what you're writing right now. Because to me, I'm like, if these were actual clear issues, I'm like, then why have we only waited until bad results came about for us to actually make some sort of noise about? And in my opinion, it's to make the manager look bad. It's to make him look as bad as possible and to make it seem like they're doing us a favor by getting rid of this guy. But honestly speaking, I don't really have anything negative to say about Enzo Maresca in terms of how he's done the job. I think this season for me, we were headed towards underachieving from what we did last year. And it's unfortunate, but it's very easy to see also what's contributed to that is some of the decisions we made from the summer. And on top of that, the briefings that we were putting out for January is that we're not going to do any business in January, which I'm like, are you lot nuts? You lot are seeing our team is struggling. You telling me January you've already written off and said that we're not going to do any business. I'm sorry, but if there's business to be done in January, you do business in January. But like the reality of it is do the right type of business, because it's that's the problem we've had. It's not that these people are scared of making moves. It's the fact that they're not making the right type of moves to actually fix the real ongoing issues in our squad. And that's where the problem lies. Whoever comes in, I don't care what manager you are. I don't care if you're experienced. I don't care if you're a young manager. The reality of it is the squad issue is the squad issue. And if it now goes to another manager, I'm like, don't expect different results. Do something about that squad, because this squad cannot survive the summer. Like on its own, there are surgical movements that you need to make for next season that generally are so damn obvious to us. We don't even need to wait for the season to end. There are players that just don't deserve to be playing for us anymore. Simple as.
Very much simple as. And the problem is, on the one hand, I agree we need to get rid of certain players. On the other hand, I think part of what's been hindering us so much over the last couple of years is too much of a squad change consistently. I feel like leave the squad a little bit alone for a bit and you will see dramatic improvements, which I think is what you saw last season. But then we threw it,
I think the defense
again last summer.
The defense is what I'm really referring to, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I don't need like major. It's the defense in particular, bro. We are leaking too many chances and too many goals. And I'm like, even if the formation's not helping you minimize that as much as possible, it's a bit worrying, man.
Yeah, but I think the formation talk, that's just club talk, in my opinion, because, I mean, everyone just had to watch the games. You could pretty much see almost every goal we ever conceded was an individual error. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, you can't have a go at the formation if literally every goal you concede is somehow an individual error. But
you have to admit, though, some of these set pieces, brother. Yeah, some of these set pieces, though, like the Bournemouth game, bro, it's flipping 2 throw-ins, bro.
Yeah, but I want to say on that as well. But that's the set piece coach, and again, not the manager.
It's whatever it is, bro. They gotta fix it, bro.
Yeah, and that guy, by the way, he's not leaving. So don't expect the set piece defending to get any better. Tell you that much.
Oh God, man.
or the fact that we play every single corner exactly the same way. Reece James trying to drill it into the near post, and either it's the easiest catch for the keeper, or we get lucky, like we did against the first goal
versus Villa. Was it not Villa? The João Pedro goal.
Yeah, Villa. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
where it fell on João Pedro's kind of calf. But yeah, I just want to get.
We've done well though offensively.
Potential managers that have been ruled out. Sorry, Nation, you were saying something. Go on.
So, just on the set pieces, I will give it to them. They've done well offensively on the set pieces. I think we're on top 2 or 3 on
Although
set
it's
pieces,
a little bit of a skewed stat because I think we scored 3 or 4 against West Ham, and I think we're on 8 or 9 in total. So like. Yeah, but also no, no. But it's true. It's true. It's just the combination of things, right? It's no point if you score 1 from a set piece, but you concede 2 every game, right?
For fun as well, man.
Unhelpful. But yeah, a few potential managers, a few ones ruled out. We'll scroll through a few interesting bits here. Francesco Farioli, the Porto head coach, could be considered, although it would cost in the region of £13 million to activate his buyout clause. I mean. I just literally feel like Villas-Boas 2.0 didn't he cost 13 million as well? I feel like I remember that. Different times, but sure. The worst 48-hour comments from Maresca was to do with the medical advice he was receiving over how many minutes certain players returning from injury could play. So he's very happy. Willy Caballero could take the team for Sunday's trip to Man City. That's also interesting that he's seemingly not straight away leaving. It was not viewed well by the club's medical department when James, who has a long history of knee and hamstring problems, played 3 full games in the space of a week last month. And this is one of the other things where I'm like, our entire fan base was buzzing the absolute tits off when Reece James played 390 minutes in a week and looked phenomenal in every single one of them. And looked fit after every single one of them. And what we're hearing is the club in the background having a go at the manager for doing it, while all of us were buzzing about it. And that just tells you they just don't feel the way we feel. They just really don't. There's a feeling Maresca's behavior has affected the team's form. I mean, I know you said that Nation I was distracted and stuff, but I mean, what was the game where he said, yeah, they finished the game and he was on the way back. He was going to watch 2 full Newcastle games at 1 a.m. on the bus home. I'm like, does that sound like a distracted man? not to me, but it's to me, it's a typical club rave. Yeah, of course it was his fault. Of course it was. Then we've heard, like Adash said in the comments earlier, sources in Strasbourg to L'Equipe, Rosenior at Chelsea, it is not relevant at this stage. Another source close to Blueco cautiously confided to L'Equipe, in my opinion, Rosenior is not on the list. Cucurella already said goodbye as well. Glasner, Iraola, Fabregas are not contenders for Chelsea at the moment. And also, Roberto De Zerbi has been ruled out
God damn,
once again,
bruh.
despite my appreciation. Go on.
Yeah, I'm scared.
Like, who else is there? So you're saying
Who's
no to
left?
Rosenior,
Who's
you're
left?
saying no to Glasner, you're saying no to Iraola, you're saying no to Fabregas. Mate, they're going to turn up with a League One manager.
I'm actually worried, bro. That's.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm just gonna pray that this stuff is just nonsense at the moment, but I'm gonna wait it out. But bro, they've ruled out basically a lot of the managers that I'll be like, hey, at least take a look at these guys and see which one of those
Yeah.
would fit us. But you've ruled out De Zerbi, Areola, Glasner. You've ruled. Who's left? Fabregas on top of that too. Fabregas would be a good feel-like appointment. Don't get me wrong as well. Like, but still, like generally speaking, whoever you appoint next, they have to be correct. They've got to be correct, man. Like I don't know how else. Like I can't understate this for these owners. They have to come correct.
I'm vouching for Ancelotti. Honestly, I know it's it's far fetched, but
Wait,
pay
World Cup
Brazil.
season.
I know, but in football, anything can happen. Alonso as well from Real Madrid. He's not doing too great at Real Madrid. You never know; things can happen in that
The
sense.
thing is just,
But they
okay,
will
like
not.
if Real Madrid did sack Xabi Alonso, I think Liverpool would instantly sack Slot and get Alonso. So it's like, I don't think we're
Yeah,
really
that's that.
in for that, if I'm being honest, because otherwise I would back that one. Ancelotti ain't happening.
Yeah.
Now, because of obviously he's at Brazil, but realistically, our owners ain't hiring some 70-year-old Donny who's won everything, so we'll tell them what to do. They will not want that, will they?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
like,
no.
not to be as realistic as that. But
Well, in that case, Jose Mourinho it is.
they're kind of ruling out everyone that you'd potentially see as an option. Like, I'll bring up this Ben Jacobs tweet here as well. Liam Rosenior is one of a handful of candidates. He's still saying, not ruling it out like Lickkeep. Like I'm saying, he's the mouthpiece, so wouldn't he know? A quick appointment is expected, but told it's unlikely any new manager will be in the dugout for Man City. Says Fabregas is not a candidate, and Roberto De Zerbi has been ruled out despite some appreciation, like we just read out before. I mean, Nashi, I know you said you'd love for Carlo, sure. But out of what you've heard and out of what's maybe a little bit more feasible, let's say, is what you're hearing, like, you know, Iraola is not going to be it, Fabregas isn't going to be it, De Zerbi is going to be. I mean, I don't want De Zerbi. I don't like any, grapist enablers. Not a fan of those. But okay, I mean, Rosenior has only been ruled out by L'Equipe. Honestly, my expectation, I said this all of December and November and October when we were sometimes struggling. I said, if we sack Maresca, Rosenior is going to be the guy who takes over. And that's why I always said to everybody, be careful with what you wish for when you say you want Maresca gone, because you're not going to be any more happy with the next guy. Because he's a lot less experienced. He looks like a nerd rather than a football manager. And he may be able to speak well, but by the way, just to inform you, I know all the club briefs are telling us that we're really internally highly appreciating him. There's also issues at Strasbourg, by the way. They've invested 100 million, but they've invested 100 million euros only in young players, and the manager is now unhappy with the squad. So it's already the same thing is happening at Strasbourg as it is at Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a joke. The whole thing is an absolute joke. And this is what I'm saying. I don't really care who the next manager is, because I don't think anything changes. Until the sporting directors change, nothing changes. And even if the sporting directors change, until Eghbali's mind doesn't change, nothing changes. So it's all kind of just unnecessary hopelessness for me. And it's just like I'm having to deal with unnecessary things that I just don't care. Like, just leave me alone, man. Just keep a manager for more than a season for once. Like, for once, for the love of God, keep a manager. Let a manager do his job. How can we have gotten rid? Okay, I know Maresca partly left on his own accord, but that's because he wasn't allowed to do things that he wanted to do. How can Amorim have lasted longer than Maresca? How is that normal? Like, he has won only 35% of the games, and he's still there? Oh my God! It's just. We don't do anything right. We sack managers as if we still had Roman, but we sign players as if we're Brighton. You can't mix those two. It needs to be either the one or the other, for the love of God. And just FYI, at Behdad Eghbali, Brighton just signed a 34-year-old yesterday. Can we sign a 34-year-old, for the love of God? Do you know what I mean? Oh my God. I mean, like I say, Neshi, what do
I don't expect the
manager?
model to change, man.
Is the manager like a big deal for you in your head, where you're like, a certain manager, I'll back it, I'll be on support? Or is it like, well, whoever it is, I have to support it?
I think you just touched on it. So, or is it a question for me, or
no, go on, Nish.
Yeah. So I think you just touched on it. It's Eghbali. He's the one that's leading this whole mess. I think Todd Bowley's taking a back seat. He said, "Okay, you know what? You've won the Club World Cup, the Conference League. I'll let you deal with the player side of things, the field side of things." And now I think now that it's become a mess, maybe Todd Bowley's gonna come kind of jump in and say, look, I told you so, kind of thing. But I do believe it's the manager's got no control over this. The only thing that the manager has, or any potential new manager, is going to have control over his player selection and probably tactics. Anything to do with transfer policy, and even the status of how a player is on the medical side of things is controlled by the club, and this micromanagement kind of thing is going to continue. I think every game, I think the board, like Eghbali and the sporting directors, go to the change room, and that's not right. That's not only undermining the manager, it's undermining the manager in front of the players, and the players have to almost not worship the manager, but like they have to follow and have full faith in the manager. And you having the sporting directors coming after every game in the change room undermines that whole relationship. So I don't think they understand and they're treating Chelsea like a corporate business, when football is not. It's not a corporate business. You're dealing with people. You're dealing with young players. You're dealing with so many different factors, and they're gonna soon realize that, which is my hope, that they need to take a step back, get a manager they have full faith in, and change the transfer policy.
And my problem is, and this is why I was so adamant, there's no point in Maresca leaving. We need to change the sporting structure. Because, and I replied this to CFC Daily on Twitter earlier as well, because he was like, yeah, I want everyone to go. I'm like, yeah, but everyone to go doesn't work either. Imagine being in a situation where the manager left and you sacked the sporting directors. So then you've just got Eghbali running shit. That's even worse. You know what I mean? You need a manager that's there and provides a little bit of stability. And then while the manager is there, you need to sack the sporting directors. But now, Naishi, these sporting directors will hire the next manager as well, just like they hired the last managers. So, of course, the next manager will have the same issues as them because they hired him, right? So it's just, and I also love this comment from Fundamentally Blue, from loopholes to just holes. And it's so accurate. It's so accurate. And I actually highlighted a comment to get back to later, I think. Yes, here from Fantasy PGA Tour earlier, just in terms of you saying it's like run like a corporate business. And I think this is a good point what Fantasy made. He's like, it's not working at all for our desires of winning silverware. But do you think it is working from their perspective of trying to profit of selling players? And I think it isn't either. Now, obviously, we haven't sold that many of them. But currently, as of today, we have only sold 6 players for profit. It's not like we are, having a conveyor belt of where we're making millions over millions every summer with crazy, cheap finds, crazy bargains we found when they're 19 and then we sell them at 21 for crazy money. That hasn't happened yet. Like whether it was David Washington who went back on loan to Brazil, whether it was Castellet who we sold for the same money. There's so many examples where we've either lost out on money or made nowhere near enough money to like justify everything that we've gone through. So I don't know. I know you kind of touched on that already before that, Mo, but how decisive for you is the choice of the next manager? Because like I say, in my head, it's a bit more, it almost doesn't matter. Now, there is exceptions to me saying it almost doesn't matter, but it almost doesn't matter within the people that I find somewhat realistic for these sporting directors to pick. Did you see that the same, Mo?
And honestly, I think for me, it's the way I look at it, it's looking at our current circumstances. We clearly need to make Champions League football. We clearly need a manager in charge that is able to handle whatever our philosophy is right now. Like, it's very obvious to me they're not going to budge on that. If Pochettino had to leave, if Maresco's now leaving, if Tuchel couldn't play ball with that either, that tells me that these lot are not really willing to pivot from that stuff. So whoever you put in charge needs to understand that that's exactly what you're going with, and what they will be working with is whatever that they agree with the board, and they are simply just a coach. If they don't understand that, generally speaking, It makes no sense for them to come through that door. So for me, personally, it matters because the reality of it is, if we're going with this type of model, the most important thing in going with a young model is you need a stability. If your environment is not stable, the development of those players or the development of those investments that are probably players that you want to flip at some point, they are all going to start suffering as a result of having an instability at your club. So for me, it is very important that we get this right, whether that's to stick with the manager long term or not. Reality of it is, I have now written myself off to understand that at Chelsea Football Club, I thought maybe with this new Clear Lake owners, that maybe we're going to start writing a new chapter, and what we were going to start doing is doing things a little bit more long term. It seems very clear to me that we're not going to be doing that right now.
Yep.
It's
That's what I
very
meant
clear.
earlier when I said with the managers, we're acting like we still have Roman, but we're not signing players like that, and that's why it's not working.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's hella annoying because the reality of it is, bro, all of these managers that they're dismissing right now, it wouldn't shock me if somebody that we don't know now comes through the door, and then we're now having to do research at God knows what o'clock to understand who this person is. Because Enzo Maresca and McKenna, I think, was the Ipswich manager. When they were linked with our club, we had no freaking clue who the hell they were. So
Yep.
the same principle, again, unfortunately, applies here. Whoever they end up getting, in my opinion, needs to get top four. Whoever they end up getting needs to make sure that they understand and align themselves with what this board are trying to do. Because no matter what happens, you've now seen the tail of the tape enough times to know that they're not going to pivot for you, no matter who you are. Simple as.
And that's exactly my worry, isn't it? Because on the one hand, I kind of have thought this a few times. I thought this with Poch as well. I'm like, why are you now upset that they're not giving you transfer power? As if they haven't told you that in the beginning. And honestly, it's a little bit like that with Maresca. But I think Maresca has a slightly different situation of where Cobo got an ACL injury. And he was like, I need a new centre-back now. You know, that I feel like that's a little bit of a different situation. I still don't really know how to feel about the Nicholas Jackson situation. Recently, there was reports that Jackson will never play for Maresca again. Maresca is now left. Does that mean Jackson's coming back? You know, if that report was true, do we have hope for actually having a striker? Maybe. He's not exactly playing a lot of Bayern, is he? Do you know what I mean? So, but
We knew
we
that.
touched on a lot of the squad issues, right? But he asked for a centre back, reasonable, considering our best one is out with an ACL injury. And the fact that he's not happy with the striker situation, I mean, my God, my nan wouldn't be happy with the striker situation. My nan would probably be better than our actual strikers, you know? Like, it's just, But like Mr. Jake said, no manager will come here and be told who to play and when and how to play them. Like, as much as what you're saying, Mo, is fair, like, you need to understand how this club is run and you need to, like, accept that, otherwise don't take the job. But also within that, I think there's certain limits. And I think that's what certain reports have also suggested today, that Maresca has felt certain lines were crossed in terms of you're interfering too much. Like, yes, I am the head coach, but at least let me be the head coach. Because it seems like they didn't even let him be that. So, you know, it's already one thing. We don't do managers anymore. I think we've stopped doing manager really since Jose's second spell. I remember the Roman Abramovich era when we hired the next guy after Jose. We all of a sudden appointed him as head coach. Well, before that, it was always the new manager. And I think the new ownership has stuck to that. But I think Mr. Jake is right. Like, which manager will accept their tactics, their choices of lineup being meddled with? Like, no manager is going to like that. No manager in the world is going to like that. And fantasy, this is why I'm like, scrap that hope, mate. Like, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. It says, please, dear God, let it be a name of someone I've heard and respect. It's not going to happen. Like, which name you've heard of and respect is going to accept these working conditions? They're not. They're just not. And this is where I'm like, what Naishi said, I'm like, this is my only hope of that it could get better. But, and you both are in our group chat with Dimitar. Dimitar said, if for 2 years, I feel like, he said, it needs to crash and burn real bad before it ever gets better. And I think he's right. I think it needs to get so bad with our current strategy that they eventually realize this is not the strategy. But if we make Champions League again, they're not going to realize. Honestly, even if we make Europa League, they probably don't realize. We probably need to finish 10th for them to realize that. But obviously, we don't want ourselves to finish 10th either. So it's one of the worst catch-22s ever, because you're like, if we do well, nothing's going to change. So we're never going to win again. And if we do really bad, well, none of us want us to do really bad. So I just don't see how it ever gets better. I just really don't. There was two other things, and I want to bring this back to both of you, because there was times where I asked myself this. Fantasy says then it goes back to not having a front of shirt sponsor as well. Are we just actually being run by idiots, or are we too blind to see their grand vision? And I gave them that slight benefit of the doubt until now, really. There was times where I questioned it already, but I was like, okay, it's not been long enough. Let's see how they do things when they've set a little bit, when they should have adapted to being football club owners for a bit more. You know, in the first 2 summers, you kind of, as much as they shouldn't have had those, like, you know, lack of experience issues, it was still understandable, you know, as much as same as it is with our young players, same as it was with Maresca. You don't magically make up for lack of experience. You need to gain experience, and before that, you're not going to have it. End of. But now we're 4 years in, and they're still not doing logical things. Like Mo, I'll go to you first, Mo, and then to Naishi. Are we too blind to see that grand vision? I really don't think it's that. I can't lie. I just really don't think it's that.
Hey, if you asked me about this in the summer, I'd have been like, yeah, man, we need to just give them patience. But right now, I'm sorry, man. They have fully made me see how incompetent we are. There's no way this season. Literally, we're now in January, guys, 2026. We've just won the Club World Cup, which meant a lot to us, apparently. We've just done all this other stuff that was supposed to like just be a major turning point for us. We've still not got a sponsor, guys. And as crazy as this is going to sound to people, it is such a simple process to actually fix. But we've not fixed it for 3 seasons straight. I'm actually tired on board of having that conversation with people, to the point that I was one of those people that said, nah, let's just give it a minute. They just don't want to sign a bad deal. Now, it's not even about signing a bad deal. I just think, do you even have any deals on the table? Are you actually able to get into offices? Are they, when you knock on the door, do they even open the doors for you? Because right now, what I'm seeing is we're not running things the way we should be running things. And it's very evident to me, both on and off the pitch, there are questions to be asked of these directors. There are questions to be asked on a lot of people and their roles in this club. And Eghbali, even on top of that, what is very clear to me is, since Boli's basically stepped away from this side, we've not really done that well. Boli's just not really that involved in Chelsea anymore. And Boli, for me, is the one that I bought into in the beginning, because when he spoke, the way he spoke about sports, you could see the guy at least knew what the heck he was talking about and what he was trying to replicate. Guys, what interview have you not seen of Eghbali and what he wants to do with this club? Because I ain't seen none. And the fact of the matter is, apparently, he's just there for a negotiation deal. So when Enzo Fernandez deal needed to get done, he apparently flew out there and said, "Cool, we're not getting out of this office until we get something done." So the reality of it is, all I'm hearing is mumblings, but this guy has never actually spoken out loud. And then you add in these sporting directors who think we're Brighton Football Club at this point, right? And you've got what mess that we have. We've literally not been able to run this club the way it needs to. 3 years on, we're still having some of the same conversations about what Chelsea Football Club is meant to be. And unfortunately, it's not like they inherited a club that had no identity, had no winning measures, no nothing to them. They inherited a club here that actually had a pedigree and that was actually known. So, in my opinion, what Dimitar said, as much as I don't usually agree with Dimitar about stuff, I will say that Dimitar's got a point. Maybe it needs to crash and burn for them to really recognize and understand how they're doing things isn't actually working. But you're also right. If they get top 4, are they going to start selling themselves the story of, yep, we made a managerial change, and down to that, we've managed to get top 4, and now in the summer, we are now in a position to get rid of some of these players or fix the squad up or make it worse, as we already all know? I don't know, man. I'm personally, for me, this season's right off. I need
Yep.
Champions League, but it's all honestly a write off. At this point, I'm going to go to games with the least amount of expectations I've had in Chelsea Football Club in a very long ass time.
Exactly. And you've hit the nail on the head there. I need to like get my thought back, because we were literally saying this before you joined. I was saying this to Naisha. I was like, this is the fact that, you know, you touched on the front of shirt sponsor, like so many years. We could have had a 40 million sponsor for 3 years now.
Yep.
Like that would have still been a total of 120 million. Instead, we
Yep.
made no millions, other than the Damak sponsorship for whatever 2 months or whatever it was. Because the Infinite Athletes, like I said to Naisha, that was our own company. That was just some bollocks. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, this is the worst thing. Every part of the club is being badly run. We haven't done anything. We haven't made any progress on the stadium. We haven't made any progress on the sponsorships. We haven't made any progress in terms of how the club is actually being run. It's just the whole thing. Although I have to say, when I see a comment like this from Adam, look out, how do you go from Poch to 2 trophies, healthy Reece and Fofana, trashing Barcelona and PSG, another semi-final, Champions League regained, etc., all within 16 months, and sack Maresca. I think it is important to differentiate. We didn't just sack Maresca. That is unfortunately something we have to remember. But we created the situation of where Maresca didn't want to be here anymore. But yeah, it's honestly, guys, I'm so done with it, man. I'm so done with all of these people. Just like go away. Like just make normal decisions. I just can't believe, like, I can't believe that when you have this idea of let's have this structure of a young team, young manager, and then you don't give them time, and the don't give them time applies to the manager and applies to the players. We don't give the players time either. We buy players when they're not ready yet, then we make them half ready, and then we sell them before they're actually still ready. Now, maybe this doesn't apply to Caicedo and Palmer and hopefully Esteval, maybe the ones that really work for us, but all the others have gone this way. I was never a big fan of Madueke, but we signed him for 30 million, sold him for 60, but he's better than the wingers we replaced him with. Obviously Esteval came in, and Esteval is better, and it's a side issue, and that was kind of apparent from the second we bought Pedro Neto, which is why I last year questioned the Pedro Neto signing, because I was like, we already got Esteval coming in, so then you're just going to get rid of Madueke before you know whether he turns out good or not. Now, in the end, it's fine. Like, I don't care. I don't like Madueke be at Arsenal. I don't care, but it's just an example where you're like, you can't sign a player at 21 and expect him to be world class by 23. That's not going to happen. Like, you need to let a player reach his prime before you make a final judgment on them. But we're getting rid of players long before we get to that point. And to be honest, the fan base doesn't help it either, because the fan base do the same thing, whether it was for Jackson, whether it's for Enzo Fernandez, whether it's for whoever else. And think of Cucurella. Everybody had made their minds up until he all of a sudden became world class. And everybody's like, oh, we were wrong. But everybody had made their mind up. This is different to when you sign 27-year-olds, 28-year-olds. Yes, those you can expect to perform straight away pretty much. But when you sign young players, you cannot expect that from them. So then when they don't provide that, don't have a go at the people that decided to sign them, not at the people that are inevitably not going to be at their best when they've just joined as young kids. And it's just, until that changes, and I don't see how it changes. Like we said, does it need to crash and burn? But even how badly can it crash and burn until they see that? Because they will always look forward. They will always look ahead. They will always have yeah, but we've still got Esteval developing. Yeah, but we've still got Quenda coming in. And I'm sure they'll pick out another random 16-year-old that they'll sign for in 2 years. And then we'll be looking ahead to that one. But the fact of the matter is, we don't even have a striker. Genuinely. Delap is genuinely one of the worst players I've ever seen. He's worse than Broja. And we spent money on it. What a waste of time. And I said this for months. I said, João Pedro looks like Kai Havertz. I've changed my mind. He looks like a shit Kai Havertz. And that's our strike force. You know what I mean? It's so bad. I'm not even saying Jackson was that great, and he was still miles better than those two are. And it's just how can you expect him to improve on last season when the striker is the main bit of a team? Yeah, we had Palmer and everything. But look back at every highlight reel of last season. Jackson either scored or was involved in setting it up. Every goal. And now you get rid of him and you're surprised that it's not working? Shock, paint me surprised. And again, I'm not saying Jackson is the be-all and end-all, but if you replace him, you need to get someone that's at least equally as good. And they haven't done that, but they've lost a lot of money while getting worse players. It's 90 million on Gittins and Garnacho. After you spend 5 million to get rid of Sancho. What? It's just, every decision they make just, to me, just doesn't make sense. And it's, I lose hope and I lose faith, and I'm I don't even know how I can spin it round. Could your criminal ask Laurenz, why are you not optimistic, bro? What is there to be optimistic about? Tell me. Nation, do you have anything to be optimistic about?
Yeah. Is what the main thing really is, honestly, as you just touched on, in the summer, just to go back to that, we had the opportunity. I really think if we done good business in the summer, we could have won this league. We really could have won this league by a mile, really, because look how inconsistent it is. we were in a position, yeah, to, like you said, we're buying players before they reach their full potential. Like Nani Madueke, we could have easily kept him in his position. It's like they kind of forced him to come out of the club because they were putting him on the left for some reason towards the end of the season. I don't know if any of you guys noticed that they pushed him to the left. It's almost trying to force that move. One, we could have kept Nani, and then at least if we have Nani and Pedro Neto on the right, then we can ease in Esteval for the cup games and stuff like that, and it will be more of an excuse not to leave out Esteval. On the left side, as you touched already, Sancho paying 5 million to what's it called, get rid of him, it's just
Yeah.
baffles me. Honestly, he was a very good player, and okay, I appreciate that he probably wanted more money or demanded more money. Why don't you just give him that money? Like, those stories, I don't know, those rumors out that he wanted around 200k. I think we pay that much for Reece James. I
Well, we pay
wouldn't
way
think
more for
that's
Reece, but Reece, to be fair, is worth a lot more than Sancho. But for me, like, if you don't want to keep Sancho for his wages, I'm okay with that. But then get
yeah,
someone at least as good or better than him.
as
Don't
good.
spend
Yeah,
90 million on players that are worse. Like, you can't have every player. If he asks too much, it is what it is. If Madueke forces his move to Arsenal, it is what it is. But you've created those situations for yourselves, and they
exactly.
don't hold accountability for that, and that's what just it eats me up inside. I can't even lie. It eats me up inside, genuinely.
Just on the striker as well.
Yeah.
Honestly, the strikers we have bought, they are awful. I have no hope with those two strikers. Like Liam Delap is 10 times worse than Jackson. I'm not even exaggerating by saying that. How many he scored? I think he scored 1 goal in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And João Pedro, he's touch alone. Forget about his playing ability and dribbling. His touch is horrendous. I don't know if you want to make sure when you're watching a Chelsea game, just watch his touch. It bounces off his feet every single time. And I'm just thinking, Jackson is 10 times better than both of these players.
Yeah.
And it has been one of the worst summers. It reminds me of the summer transfer window when we bought Drinkwater and who was it as well? Bakayoko.
Drinkwater was January though, wasn't he?
Okay. Oh yes, that was. I think that
Yeah,
might have
yeah.
been
That
January,
was the
but
January when we bought Drinkwater, Zabacosta, and Barkley, wasn't it? Wasn't it
yeah,
them three?
Yep. Yep.
yeah, yes. It reminds me of that kind of transfer. That's how bad that transfer window. Oh, the
Yeah,
summer transfer window just gone. That's how bad it
exactly.
was.
Exactly. And at least back then we had like a stable squad around it. Now we kind of took players out and added one. Like guys, I was really not a fan of Dewsbury Hall. But at least
Mm.
Dewsbury was good enough to make the fucking squad. Buonanotte isn't even good enough for that. Buonanotte is
Yeah.
barely good enough to play under 15s. Look how small he is, man. I reckon my nan could push him over. Like, what can you do? Although I have to disagree with Couture Criminal's comment here. They offered Semenyo 200k. I haven't even seen that, to be fair, but I'll take your word for it. It's an admission of mistake with Sancho. I disagree. I think they just valued Semenyo higher than they valued Sancho, if I'm being honest. But yeah, just mentioned it about Cuckoo. I'm not sure what exactly you're talking
About
about, but there you go. I mean,
I'm thinking they're talking about Cucurella has wished well to
okay,
Maresca.
yeah, there you go. There you go. I just want to highlight this, and maybe you ask that to you as well, Mo, if there's anything that you're clinging on to for optimism, because Fantasy says the reason to be optimistic is that we have Palmer, James, Caicedo, Cucurella, and Esteval. If we just had a bit of common sense, that platform could bring great things. The
Yeah.
platform could bring great things, but what scares me is how many of them will stay if this goes on for much, excuse me, much longer. You know what I mean? That's my worry when
It's
Fantasy says that.
the
How do you?
players that we know are good. I don't think any one of us are saying, these players are horrific. Like they're not horrific. They're all those players that you've just mentioned there are players that I already all back. And there's the problem you've got is you need a manager or you need a situation that allows 11 players to go on the pitch and play in a way that is very complementary of each other and get the results that you need them to get. The problem we have now is we're not getting the results. And when you're not getting the results, it's when it gets really tough, right? For me, the first person I look at is the manager. I'm like, figure this shit out. Figure out what we need to change, adapt what you need to adapt, and let's go get these results. The problem you have is now all of this contradictory information that's coming out. I mean, a moment ago, what I'm reading is in regards to protecting injuries for certain players, Pedro Neto Fofana and Reece James is the three players that were only mentioned. And the medical team were given the power to say how long these players should be playing, and the manager then had to follow this by principle. Like he had no choice being given to him. Then I'm like, well, that doesn't really make any sense, because then we can see that we're causing the same issues to Caicedo, to Enzo Fernandez, to other players that we're clearly overplaying. So I'm like, are we going to ignore what we're going to say? We're going to fix one problem while still creating that same problem in other players? That doesn't make sense to me. So I'm like, how are they actually addressing the real problem at hand? And they really haven't been. Let's be honest. They really haven't been. And I think the biggest issue you've got with this is, in order to be optimistic, sometimes what you need is a little bit of consistency that allows you to understand what we're actually trying to do. Right now, that consistency has disappeared. We're being consistent in being inconsistent. How can you go to Aston Villa at home, first half, dominate them the way that you did and play football like that, and then the first half against Bournemouth is so completely like the different side of the game? Like, how can that be the case? I don't understand that side of the game. That's where our biggest issues lies. And it's not just the players, bro. I'm gonna also put this on the manager that we've just sacked. Is It's a two-way street here. The players are causing errors, don't get me wrong, but the manager's also having to witness this on the pitch. What are we doing about these things? Because they seem to be a reoccurring problem. You're on mute, bro.
Thanks for that. I'm not sure if you
No
followed
worries.
along with a discussion we had in our group chat yesterday. We were talking about like the long throw defending, and
Yeah.
like the problem is we've tried various ways of defending them, and none of them work. So it's like, you know, I know I said earlier this is a set piece coach thing anyway, but just because of just as an example of what you're talking about in terms of you need the coach to do something different. Like the coach has, in my opinion, tried different things this year. You know, where I'm saying like we didn't always play the inverted fullbacks. We played some games where we only had a centre back two to build and kept both fullbacks wide. Sometimes we played them as tens. Sometimes, like against PSG, we played the fullback as a right winger and let Palmer come inside. I know we didn't do that regularly, but why? Yeah, because Palmer has spent the last 4 months injured. So it's just man, it's
Unfortunate circumstances. You can definitely say that, innit?
yeah, and it's also like try something different, but with who? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, okay, if Chalobah is having a bad game, okay, play who? Tosin? All right, brilliant. Okay, yeah, sure, play Achampong. But we all like, yes, all of us would be more accepting with Achampong making mistakes, but let's not pretend that a 19-year-old Achampong wouldn't also make mistakes. They all would make
No,
mistakes.
he would. But I can deal with it. I can deal with Ashenpo making mistakes more than I can with Tosin.
No,
Because
100%.
I'm like,
I
bro.
don't disagree. But at the same time, we're also sat there saying we're asking for more experience, and Tosin is the most experienced. But that's why I already was
And
annoyed
that's the
when we
problem,
signed him even on the
yeah.
free, because I was like, the experience we need isn't 3 years Championship and 3 years Premier League with Fulham. That's unhelpful experience. We don't need that. We need proper winning experience, because what we're seeing here is completely pointless. I want to quickly go back to Pitt Gay's comment here from earlier. He said he was referring to the fact that we are saying the strikers aren't good. We don't give our players a chance. They've been here for 1 season and not even a full season. This is true, and this is what I want to say. I keep hiding this. I know Delap and João Pedro, I'm harsh on them, but when I am harsh on them, I don't want to be harsh on them. The problem is that they were signed to be ready now. That's the thing, BK. They weren't signed, okay, we'll finish 6th this year, no problem. And that's why I said, if you have signed the lap and you kept Jackson, I would have been perfectly okay with this, because Jackson was now in his 3rd Premier League season, is a ready striker, and you have the other guy to build and learn behind him to also be ready come next year. But instead, what we did is we have now 2 players at the same time in the same position who we need to give time until they're good enough. And by doing that, you do not allow for progression. And the reason why we're getting sacked, why the manager has left, and the reason why we had issues in the background is because the higher-ups expected progression, but didn't provide the foundations to make progression happen.
Yeah. They worked against that. I think the point that you're making is fair. Like, I do think he's saying, like, we're not giving people a chance, right? And okay, we are giving people a chance in certain circumstances. Madueke was given a fair chance, and in general, he played for us for 2 years, and in my opinion, he became a better player for it, because especially when he was under Maresca, he got way more game time, which is why we were able to sell him for as much as we did. For me, what I don't get is we didn't need to make wholesale changes. We needed to keep what was good and add to the good. What we did was we almost stripped the whole thing, but then we took away some of the parts that I generally don't think that was that much of an issue. Nicholas Jackson was a bit of a headache. Yes, he was missing a lot of chances, but also what you could see with him is that he contributed to the team's overall play way more, which is why I've never really understood us falling out with him. I was like, we need competition for him so that he understands if he's not performing, there's someone on the bench that will be put on the pitch, and it can't be Mark Geary. Like that's the way I looked at it, right? As soon as we get Delap and João Pedro, this whole Jackson situation happens and we get rid. And I'm like, okay, well, now you have basically forced us to be in a position where two new players, one of them or both of them, need to hit the ground running in order for us to feel okay about this decision that we've just made. You could literally say the same thing on the left-hand side also. On the left-hand side, you go get Garnacho and you go get Gittins. Just looking at both players on paper, they're both very young. They're both very role players with high potential. But the problem you have is if they don't hit the ground running again, the pressure is there again. And this is where the problem is for us, is that when you have too many of those examples to give in so many parts of the pitch, I think you have a problem. Like, you really need to address that problem. And in my opinion, Esteval, right now, this is the one thing I will say about this manager that I generally will give as a negative. Esteval clearly is the future of Chelsea Football Club. It's very fucking clear. The same way Cole Palmer is, the same way Caicedo is, that we could all see it. Play the player. Play him. I would
I will
rather
also
put
say
that
what
investment.
you're seeing with Cole Palmer right now is why I don't want us to overplay Esteval.
No, I get that. But right now, let's be honest, when it comes to being efficient on the pitch, we saw the last game, bro. The kid is fearless. The kid tries to make something happen. Whereas the other players are being far too fucking safe. And that's the problem, bro. Is us being safe is making it easier for the opposition. Whereas Esteval got the penalty for Palmer to score. Do you see what I mean? There's the difference. We moved him all the way to the other side where I was against the manager.
And he was our best left winger we've had all season.
And then, yeah, exactly. He did the same shit on the other side. And I said, what the hell? This kid has to play every minute, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, I'm
until
exactly
that
when
point,
I say...
if he's only good on the right, and I even though I don't rate Neto very highly, I understand the manager wanting him in the team for work rate reasons, for mentality reasons, and for he's a little bit older than most of the others. But if Esteban was better than Garnacho and Gittins on the left as well, then you could have played both of them the whole time. So I don't think Esteban should be playing every game, but I think he should have played more than he did recently. But I do also 100%. Think Fantasy PGA Tour makes a great point, where it's like the ownership have created a culture of bringing in players in and out at a high volume, but we don't even have the right environment for long-term judgment. Now, Esteban is obviously a different equation to this, and I think all of us agree that he should have probably played a little bit more, but at the same time, all of us don't know really the ins and outs. You know, we heard that he was already struggling with the cold in training. You know, imagine how much he's going to struggle with the cold for night games. You know, these are small things that people don't consider. This is a kid that came from Brazil to Europe. Mm-hmm. This is his first winter in Europe.
But also he had momentum, though.
He's ever seen a cold winter. You know what I mean? These are also small things that matter. But at the same time, Esteban is the one where I agree with criticism. Because I was never saying you're not allowed to criticize Maresca. I never said that. All I ever said was Maresca isn't the main issue. If you sack Maresca, the issues won't solve themselves. That's all I was kind of ever getting at. And this is the next crazy thing. It was more Naishi saying this earlier than you, Mo, but Naishi was earlier saying, like, yeah, the results were really bad in December. And I was like, they were, but my God, how many refereeing decisions did go against us? Think about it. Think about it. The first Bournemouth goal, clearly handball, should never stand. Their second goal comes from a throw-in that's clearly a foul, should never happen. Then we literally got robbed of 3 points against Villa by that handball not being given as a penalty. If we go 2-0 up, there's no doubt in my mind that we win that game. And then instead of currently being 9 points behind Villa, we would currently be 3 points behind Villa. How different would that look? You know, because we would have been 4 behind them after that. And let's assume they still lose to Arsenal. Let's assume we still draw to Bournemouth. We would have caught them up by 1 more. We would be now 3 points behind them. As it is, it's 9, which looks gigantic. And really, it's all down to one refereeing decision. Yeah, you can say we should have handled it better. Yeah, of course we should have done. But life ain't a fucking pony farm. You know, sometimes you need things to go your way. And when you have one decision after the other going against you, in a time of where you're struggling already as it is, well, then of course, it's fine margins in football. I feel like this is what I feel like people don't give enough credit to. They're just like, oh yeah, we've had bad results. I mean, yeah, we did have bad results, but for a lot of these bad results, there are explanations, and it's not just like, oh, look at how bad our December has been. And that just, yeah, like I say, I feel like we're starting to go around in circles, so it's probably a good time to slowly but surely come to the end of this stream. But it's just bringing me to a point of where, and I tweeted this yesterday, it's bringing me, for the first time in my life, I'm at a point where I'm questioning whether I can support this institution. That doesn't mean whether I can keep being a Chelsea fan. Of course, you cannot not stop being a fan of your club. But how attached you are to it, that can change. And I think what they're doing at the moment is changing it. It's changing it. And like Mazda says, until the sporting directors are gone, nothing changes. And even then, it's only up in the air if Behdad Eghbali trusts new sporting directors that know better. Because if the next ones, even if they ever happened, if the next ones aren't any better, then we're just even more screwed.
I think the money situation is the only thing that can do it, innit?
Sorry, say that again, bro.
I think the money situation is the one thing that can impact these people to make different types of decisions. When their pocket is impacted, they may look at it and say, you know what, okay, cool. Now we need to fix up because we're losing far too much money. At the moment, it seems like they're not really acknowledging the loss of money.
They're not really acting like they need money, though, are they? Considering they've not signed a sponsorship deal.
They're not, but I think the problem you have is like they're not looking at it and saying to themselves like, oh, the money we're losing is unacceptable. Right? Like they're not that stage yet. They're still at that stage where they feel like we'll manage this how we feel like, and we'll do things they're very much like already in their own bubble of how they want to do things, that they're not willing to acknowledge other ways of looking at things. So for me, that means until the money is actually hurt by their side, they're probably going to make decisions that we don't align with.
Exactly. And it's probably things like missing out on Champions League football, not once, but maybe twice in a row. Maybe things like that. On Fire Red saying, on the one, I blame Maresca, he just made Jackson third choice over two new players. The Jackson situation with Maresca I find confusing. These reports recently that Jackson will not play for Maresca again, I find odd. I'm still not sure. Because obviously he did get that red card in the Club World Cup. And maybe Maresca lost his shit at him after that, and that's when they fell out. Who knows? Possible. But until that point, I never, ever got the feeling. And when we signed the lab, and I said this to Pys, by the way, link to mine and Pys' podcast down in the description. As soon as Pys is healthy again, we will get a new episode out for you. But I said it the whole time. If the lab comes in, he needs to be second choice behind Jackson because he is not as good as Jackson as of now. Pys told me the whole time, yeah, no, but if we'll sign him, he'll be first choice. And I said, well, to be fair, Pys is held right in the sense that the higher-ups make the squad decisions, not the manager. But quality-wise, it was, for me, always very blatant that Jackson, as of now, is still significantly better than the Lap is. So I don't know if Maresca truly did make this decision or not. The whole summer is just fucked. Like, we signed João Pedro as a versatile forward. Then he played striker, scored 3 bangers, and the club were like, oh, actually, he's a striker now. Let's get rid of our striker. And now we don't have a good enough number 10 backup to Palmer, and we don't have good enough strikers either. We just fucked the whole squad. And it's just put us in a pathetic situation.
Really bad management, honestly.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Let me just see. Pys has just woken up, I think, because he has now tweeted, thanks for everything, Enzo. So he's had a rough morning reading everything that's happened, but it didn't exactly come as a surprise. Ladies and gentlemen, on this note, I think it's about time we wrap it up. Of course, we will be back with our reaction to the City game on Sunday at the very latest. If we get any manager news before that, we will, of course, discuss it. Please check out Mo's Twitter. It's down in the description below at Mohammed Idol, I think is what your at is. He had his Twitter hacked recently. And he's got it back today. So it's a good day to go and drop him a follow. That'd be massively appreciated. Hit the like button as well, guys. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't done that yet. Would be massively appreciated. Big shout out to Nashi as well. You had to head off earlier. Thank you very much for him, for tuning in, for joining me. Same to you as well, Mo. Appreciate you very much.
Likewise, Mo.
Yes, that is Mo Idol Fantasy. Yes, that is Mo. Big up, Mo. Big up everybody else for joining me, and one more time, Happy New Year, everybody. What a start to the year. Never a boring day, never a boring year at Chelsea Football Club. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys The problem that there is a real football person in their circle. Yeah, exactly. And the real football people in their circle are those sport directors, which is why they're not getting sacked. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and I will see you next time.